Hello, everybody. It's Phil Jacobus. I'm here at my office in New York City. It's the 27th of August. It's 90 degrees outside. I'm glad to be here, and I thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to play a pre-recorded interview with a cybersecurity expert, Ido Geffen. It's a very interesting article. I know that you'll enjoy it, but before I share that interview with you, let's take a look at some of the important stories that occurred in our online news today. Now, you might recall, if you watched earlier in the week, that hospital margins are down by 96% at the start of 2020. Even though the crisis is going on, there's still a lot of companies that we talked about last week being acquired. This week, you see, here's a story that Hologic has acquired Access Health for $80 million. They're a fibroid treatment company. Exciting news. Hologic continues to grow through acquisition. And as does Change Healthcare. Here's a story that Change Healthcare acquired Prometheus Analytics. It's a reimbursement company. And of course, we remember Prometheus from our college days. Interesting, these companies continue to grow. Healthcare continues to do well in the stock market. Read our news, please. It's free. You can sign up. You will always be informed. You will always learn something. I learn something every day by reading our news. Hello, everyone. It's Phil Jacobus once again. And today, this afternoon, I'm joined from Jerusalem in Israel, Ido Geffen, the Vice President of Product at CyberMDX. And Ido is a very smart guy who's familiar with cybersecurity. He's contributed to our magazine, Healthcare Business News. Ido, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for letting me be part of that, Philip. Really excited.
So, Ido, I'm familiar with your company, and of course, we appreciate your contribution. But for those people who are not familiar, from 5,000 feet in the air, can you tell us just a little bit about CyberMDX?
Yes, sure. So at CyberMDX, we have a unique technology that we developed specifically for hospitals. We are bringing full visibility of all of the connected devices into the network of a hospital. And we have some unique techniques in order to provide cybersecurity and utilization insights about all of the connected devices, and specifically for medical devices, which are unique for healthcare. I see. So that's got to be quite a challenge when you think about how many hospitals there are and how many devices in each hospital. Yeah, we see more than 200 different families of connected devices to a traditional hospital in the US. We are seeing a very large variety of different connected devices, from CT devices, patient monitors, infusion pumps, to a traditional IoT devices like security cameras, IP phones, and of course, all the traditional IT connected devices, which are servers and workstations.
Now, obviously, since this is your specialty, you've given this a lot of thought. If you had to think of the top security risks, what would they be?
Okay, so there are some strong trends that we are seeing today in this COVID-19 era. The top threat right now and the most common attack vector that our hackers are using today against hospitals are phishing lure. We are seeing them really taking the advantage of all of this COVID-19 fatigue, and they're using phishing in order to deploy malicious code and also for deploying ransomware attacks. We really seen a dramatic increase of spam and also scams that are related to COVID-19. We have seen more than 40% increase in average of ransomware payments that are issued by healthcare delivery organizations. So I will put this as the top threat right now. A second threat that is really emerging during the last few months is attacks that are trying to attack directly the remote and teleworking infrastructure that hospitals are using today. We have seen, in a one day, many hospitals needed to have a lot of VPN connections for remote working, for telehealth, and we're really seeing the bad guys taking an advantage and using one-day vulnerabilities in order to hack into the virtual private networks of hospitals. For example, the most common one is hacking into the Citrix or Pulse Secure, which are two technologies that are very common in the US. We also seen a lot of cloud collaboration services, for example, Office 365, that were deployed in a very quick manner. And hackers are taking this as advantage when sometimes there are a very big gap of on the one hand, a very rapid deployment and a lot of gaps on the deployment and the configuration and the cybersecurity issues that are related to that. And another thing that, at least in my perspective, is the most alarming part is attacks that are involving in the attacks medical devices, especially medical devices that are connected directly to patients. If it's infusion pumps or even respirators and anesthesia machines. And we do see ransomware attacks against those devices, and the ability also to manipulate those devices or bringing them into denial of service. It's something that is very easy to being done today. So to sum up, I think phishing is the most common one. Remote and teleworking infrastructure attacks are the one that are most emerging one. And attacks against connected medical devices is a threat that we have seen in the last few years, that this nightmare really becomes reality today.
Now, may I ask, is there, and this isn't about, selling your company services, but is there one solution for all of these, or does each challenge require a different solution?
Okay, so this is a great question. I think that when it comes to cybersecurity, there is no bulletproof. It's a matter of risk assessment, risk management, and the way to tackle this problem, this great challenge, is layers of protection. So what we need to understand, first of all, is how hackers are working. There are pretty concise and steps or phases of a cyber attack. And basically what a good strategy for mitigating attacks is to understand each one of those phases and on each one of them, trying to make it harder to the bad guys to move from one step of the attack to the next one. So for example, I would give an example if there is a point of entry. So we need to make sure that our devices are patched, they have an endpoint protection. But even if this layer of protection wasn't sufficient, then we need to have a way to identify lateral movement of the bad guy. So we need a detection and we need a microsegmentation. If you want, I can jump more in depth on each one.
Let me just ask you,
yeah.
Patching means updating your computer to the latest version of software.
Right.
And the second term you just used there?
So there is patching, which,
patching,
as you mentioned.
Yeah, right. And the next one?
The next option that you have in your toolbox is to deploy an anti-malware or an endpoint protection.
Right.
And also you can do a configuration change. So if there is a service that is open and you don't need to do it. So this is also a good practice. For example, to close any ability to connect to the computer or to the medical device if it's not something that you need it functionally. for the functionality of the device.
So what exactly does your company offer? Do you advise people on how to protect themselves, or do you offer a software program that helps to protect them? What do you do exactly?
Okay, so our solution is really going about taking the mindset of the hackers and putting a layers of protection. So the first one is to being able to identify all of the connected devices. It sounds trivial, but it's not an easy task. On average, we find 30% connected devices that the HDOs weren't familiar that they are connected. Once you have a good understanding of all of the connected devices, then you want to have a concise risk assessment. So for each one of my devices, does this device using default credentials? Are there any vulnerabilities that are related to this device? The next layer of protection is to being able to build a baseline of communication of each one of the devices. So if, let's say that all of the sudden a security camera is trying to communicate with a city device, which is something that obviously shouldn't happen, then our tool automatically identify this anomaly, send an alert about it, and we also have capabilities to prevent attacks or to quarantine a device that already have been compromised.
And if it sends an alert, that means a human has to do something.
Yeah, so in this case, there are two different options. So one of them is manually, that a person needs to look on the situation. We also have a capability for doing a threat prevention in automatic manner. So for example, if we see all of the sudden that a city device is starting to communicating in a malicious manner.
A what kind of device?
Yeah.
A city device?
Let's say, yeah, a city device.
CITY?
No, a city or MRI device.
I see. Okay, an imaging machine.
Yeah, an imaging machine, yeah.
Right.
So as I said before, like for this example, let's say that we are finding a city device that is communicating with a security camera. So it's probably that maybe this security camera was breached, and then the hackers are trying to do lateral movement from one type of devices to another one.
Right.
So we can cut this type of communication from happening beforehand using a technique that's called microsegmentation.
Okay, microsegmentation. Let me ask you, if I'm a 300-bed hospital, how much time do you need from the time that we shake hands and say hello until the time that we're fully protected? Is this weeks, days, hours, months? How long?
Okay, so the first layers of the visibility, risk assessment, and threat detection, it's something that can be achieved in a matter of days. Right. The threat prevention, it's something that can take from few weeks to months. It depends on the, I mean, this is something that we're building together, the prevention strategy and the microsegmentation process with the hospitals.
Okay, well, you know, you showed me when we were first visiting, you shared your screen with me. We only have just a moment or two, but you shared a screen that showed how many devices are currently connected to the internet without any protection. And you're sharing your screen again, and here we can see that there are 831 devices that are on the internet in the United States, not that are just open. Like if I was a rat, I could go to that first 134.197.228.240 and break into that hospital. Nevada System of Higher Education.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that is interesting. Let's go back to not sharing your screen anymore, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, Ido, this was an extremely interesting interview. And, you know, I'm sure that it certainly opened my eyes, and I hope it opens some of the eyes of those watching us. And I want to thank you for spending time with us and for staying up so late.
Thank you very much, Philip. It was my pleasure.